Good morning, everyone. I'm excited for another day of AuggieCon. I am Shelby Smith with the Auggie Advisory Board. I'm excited to be here this morning and really looking forward to our next session to kick off day 2 with Troy. So before we get started, let's hear in the chat, are you active Bluebeam users on the regular? Does everyone use Bluebeam at their company? We have a lot of yeses. I know that I'm a very active Bluebeam user at my company. I'm very excited to hear what Troy has to share with us this morning. Yes, Eric says he loves the studio sessions. I do too. We use studio sessions all the time to coordinate with our project teams. Okay, I am going to get started here. So it's my pleasure to introduce our next presenter for AuggieCon, Troy DeGroot, who will be presenting Uncovering the Magic of Quantity Takeoffs in Bluebeam Revu. Troy is a Bluebeam Professional Services Director and one of the industry's top voices in Bluebeam Revu. Today, he will be showing us what is possible in Revu, transitioning from basic to advanced skills. He will demonstrate how custom toolsets are built, how to build assemblies to maximize data, and even several tools he's built. Troy spends his days in the trenches learning from current business practices, obstacles, and goals from companies around the world with a passion for building custom tools and workflows to meet company needs. Additionally, he teaches several thousand students each year in his training programs. I know I'm excited to hear all the valuable information he has to share, so please join me in welcoming Troy DeGroot.
All right. Thank you, everybody. Thanks for joining. A lot of activity in the chat. I appreciate that. A lot of Bluebeam users. Fantastic. Well, welcome. Hope everyone's enjoying the conference so far. Over the next hour, I'm going to uncover the magic of estimating in Bluebeam, or at least try to. My name is Troy DeGroot. I'm the Bluebeam Professional Services Director at U Chapter 2. A little bit about my experience. I started my career as a structural steel detailer through a high school internship using board drafting techniques. Moved on to using CAD for several structural engineering firms in and around the Minneapolis, Minnesota area. I did start in R13 AutoCAD, so back in the late 90s. From there, I moved and created a BIM manager position, transitioning about 70 employees across 7 offices throughout the Midwest into a 3D BIM design environment. So that included structural, mechanical, electrical, plumbing, fire protection, civil, and laser scanning. After that experience, I found a new passion for building people and processes, and I transitioned my career to teaching and leading implementations for programs like AutoCAD, Revit Structure, Revit Architecture, and really specializing in Bluebeam Revu. Now I provide industry-leading customization services and training for Bluebeam Revu, helping customers get the most out of their software investment. I'd like to thank Auggie for inviting me to speak today and share some of the magic Bluebeam Revu has to offer when customized. And I want to thank each of you for attending my presentation today, bright and early. I'm excited for what we have here. Hopefully we've got some good questions as we go too. In this presentation, I'm going to walk you through the process I've developed over the last 10 years, creating industry-leading custom tool sets in Bluebeam Revu, estimating being one of my favorites. When I first wrote this presentation, it seemed natural to start basic and build my way to more advanced workflows. But all of us in the design and construction industry know, with any project, you always start with the end in mind. By now, you've heard the industry term LOD 100. It stands for level of detail, level of development, a couple different versions of that. At the start of a project, level 100, we look to define the purpose and performance requirements of the structure. And actually, customizing Bluebeam works the same way. We have to start with the end in mind and reverse engineer the outcome. So I decided to flip my presentation over and start at the end. Instead, we'll start with the data and move toward how to collect it. First, we're going to answer several important implementation questions and compare Bluebeam to other industry applications. Then we're going to jump into Revu and show you several advanced tools I've built for customers. Working with the markups list data, we have to start by asking ourselves a few questions. Are we a general contractor just looking to collect quantities, or a subcontractor applying materials and labor costs to those quantities? Do we have a third-party estimating software we want to continue using? Or are we like 90% of the construction industry and have a detailed Excel workbook with all our labor, waste factors, and years of experience baked in? What data do we need and where do we need it? Does my company have a legacy Excel spreadsheet full of formulas and years of experience? This is by far the most common, and that's great. I can work with that. I'm never going to change what's made a company successful. When I meet with companies, I often see estimators asking or taking measurements with scales or basic tools in Bluebeam as they scribble numbers on a notepad along with calculations, phone numbers with no name next to them, their dog's name sketched in 3D lettering, oftentimes their lunch order, and maybe a grocery list for their drive home. After running the calculator, they somehow manually enter all the quantities into the spreadsheet, hoping they don't miss or double up on anything. I always ask, what if there was a revision a month from now? How would you find your notes on this project or figure out how you got to your final number? I've seen a lot of different concrete bid spreadsheets, wall and floor tile, security, you name it. I've built tools for just about every CSI division. Or maybe you have an existing estimating software. I never intend to replace these because oftentimes the material pricing is periodically updated by suppliers. I don't ever want to change a successful process. Does that software happen to allow data imports, CSV or TXT, are a couple I've come across? If we can import a CSV or TXT format document, I bet I can match the column row layout in the markups list for exporting, importing, and reduce the time and chances of manual data entry errors. Are there default values we can build into certain tools to increase efficiency, predictability, and consistency throughout my team? Or maybe like my smart friends, Doug, in the professional learning community on my website, you're using Power Query to wash or extrapolate data. You'll have to ask them about that in the forums on my site. In the examples you see here, the top image is from a door hardware estimating software called ComSense. The bottom image is a custom review markup list from tools I built several years ago to match. This was an export example where we created very visual markups on plans, exported the markups list to a CSV, and converted that to a TXT file to import into ComSense for estimating and detailing. Or a third option is that we never leave Revu at all. An example for this one, I worked with a security company who used custom tools on an iPad to walk the site with the owner, laying out all the card reader locations, cameras, and other equipment. Then they adjusted things in the engineering, all the while the estimate was updated live as changes were made. Finally, in the install process, they had the same markups in a studio session where the field tech would change the status of each to complete it. This would keep the scheduler up to date with the process so they could schedule the next job. Finally, as-built served as a value add to the owner for facility management, making them the obvious call for improvements or repairs. As we evaluate the type of data we need to generate in our markups, what are some "it would be nice if" features? For instance, we can get the volume of concrete for a parking slab on grade or tons of asphalt. But it would be nice if I could calculate the cubic yards of class 5 underlayment without multiple markups. That's an easy one I did for a customer. We create a custom column called bearing rock, where we select 5-inch depth from a choice menu, and another custom column that multiplies depth times area we took from the asphalt. Now you have both quantities for one markup. And if the shape changes, both quantities change together. Here's another one. Wouldn't it be nice if I could assign mark numbers to prefabricated assemblies? Here's a preview, but in a minute, we're going to take a look at a trick I created for a glazing company in Michigan using spaces to build a storefront glass assembly. Asking the right questions will get us closer to knowing what type of custom markup tools we need to build and how they work. A lot of times, your wishes can become reality with just a little creativity. I always hate to say no when people ask, will Bluebeam do this or that? I consider it a challenge to find a way to say yes. Here's another one. It'd be amazing if I could do one markup and have all the materials quantify. I remind people all the time, everything we estimate breaks down to either the length, area, volume, or count. And everything else is a factor of different formulas. In a minute, I'll show you one example of our concrete tools I built for a highway contractor in Colorado Springs. Let's allow Bluebeam to do what it's good at and draw just one simple and accurate markup. Then let Excel do what it's good at and have formulas tell us the volume of concrete, sheets of welded wire fabric, sticks of rebar, and maybe even your 2x12 forms. Or what about stick framing tools I built for a high-end residential contractor in Whitefish, Montana? A linear footage of treated base, double top plate, studs at 16 inches on center, anchor bolts at 20 inches on center. Or the framing tools I built for a lumberyard in Minneapolis, where we duplicated framing tools so we could separate first floor from second, allowing them to deliver material when they were needed. Here in Minnesota, you don't want to get the roof framing and find out that your roof truss is stuck to the ice because they were delivered when the basement materials were delivered in October. By asking these end game questions up front and reverse engineering, you can see we're getting closer to knowing what type of custom markup tools we need to build. Now that we know what data we need to collect and where it's best used, we can start to build specific measurement tools that fit into the data requirements. In my wood framed wall example, all the individual parts to assemble that wall can be quantified with the formulas based on the linear footage of the wall and possibly the height of the wall. But we're only halfway there. How do we differentiate material sizes? Could there be a way to identify a delivery schedule? You can see we have a pretty complex puzzle we're going to put together. This is where we start to separate the puzzle pieces by color. By flexing the power of the properties panel in Revu, the subject is used for a tool name in the tool chest and creating common categories in the markups list. The label is used if you want to see something called out on the plan. I rarely show labels on my markups, so I use the label for a more granular way to sort my markups list. And we have color. Color can be used for material type or discipline, different colors to differentiate wide flange beams, channels, tubes, etc. Or in my punch walk class, I build punch tools by color to create a clear visual language. Plumbing is blue, structure is red. Then we use layers, just like in AutoCAD, to isolate materials, or in some cases, I like to use layers for delivery schedules, like literal layers of construction, first floor, second floor, roof. Then we can create legends. In some cases, what my legends look like to determine the layout of the tool sets in my tool chest. These images are markups and legends I built for an erosion control contractor in Tampa, Florida. In the legend titles, you can see I had several phases in this project. Of course, I use spaces to automatically break these down. I built custom tools and implementations for hundreds of companies around the world and have run into just as many different estimating, project management, field software applications. Bid to Win, Co-Construct, Edge, Quick Eye, Plan Swift, and the one I hear the most, by far, the one I hear the most is on-screen takeoff. OST, OTS, people call it a lot of things. What people call it is different depending on who you ask. Just like Bluebird, Bluebeard, Revu, all the things we hear about Bluebeam. OST users are no different than anyone else. They're quick to deflect and suggest any suggestion of change. Here, there may be a few users here today. On a quick sidebar, let's go through a typical conversation I have. Now remember, I drank the Bluebeam Kool-Aid many years ago. So I ask, or they say, we do our takeoffs in OST because it has all the materials already available in libraries. And then I answer, those libraries were built by someone, just like I built them at Bluebeam. A license of OST is extremely expensive. I can't ever log in because our company doesn't have enough licenses. Should I say, you can't get a license because I guarantee other users have figured out to never close the program. And on top of that, cost, you probably already have a license of Bluebeam to view the PDFs. Yeah, we already have Bluebeam, but I know we're not using it to the way we should be. You and most everyone else, I say. Sometimes I just want to do a quick estimate for the change order, but it's such a process in on-screen takeoff. And don't you have to convert all your PDFs to TIFFs first? Anyway, having the same conversation over and over, almost word for word, curiosity got me. So I had to do a little research. To be clear, I'm by no means an OST user at any level. Let's do a quick comparison of the interface. In the left image, we see a list of what OST calls conditions. We have a cast in place concrete category with several different conditions under it. Then we have piers and precast concrete. On the right, you can see my concrete tool set I built last year for a customer in Minneapolis. I was actually shocked at how similar they were. And both have 12 by 24 continuous footing. And I've built about 15 different variations of these tools. Every company is different in how they bid or perform their jobs. I know this is a lot of slides, trust me. I'm itching to get into the software also. Hang tight. Here's a comparison of the condition properties window in OST and the properties panel in Revu. Style, name, type, layer, thickness, slope, appearance, area, perimeter, volume, and notes. All the same properties we went over in the last slides go to describe custom tools in Revu as well. Keep in mind the accuracy we gain in Revu when we calibrate the drawings and use the snap to content tool. I totally understand the importance of accuracy, but I've seen some measurements in OST that look like they were done with crayons. So let's take a closer look at some of those tools and start to show you some tips and tricks with the basic measurement tools. Finally, we're headed into Revu. Let's see, I'm going to jump over. So the first example I want to show you is a glazing company. So this was a company, they were doing storefront glass. And so I built a tool set for them. Basically, when I build tools, I don't think about the thousands and thousands of types of glass or carpet or anything like that we could use. I don't want to create a tool for all of those. So I build them pretty generic. One of my first questions is worst case scenario, how many, in this case, types of glass do you need on a project? 10. Okay. Worst case, we need 10 different types of glass. So I'll create 10 tools. glass 1, glass 3, 4, you get the idea. Different colors, hatch patterns, whatever the case might be. So then they can come in and put G1. These are all tempered glass on the lower so they don't get busted. And then they have different colors or whatnot up here. I don't remember what the difference was. So that's getting the area of each of those panels of glass. Then I created a count tool. Instead of clicking for a joint on each side of these horizontal mullions, I created a tool that represented 2 of them. So I cut all my clicks in half. I just have to go through and click on each of these. But what I want to show you here is in this drawing, I have, first of all, a curtain wall and a storefront here. And all of my markups in my markups list are spread out. So I've got all kinds of different markups here, and some of it's curtain wall, some of it's storefront. And one of the things I talked about in the slides was creating an assembly with a mark number. So something I developed years ago when I don't even remember when it was, maybe 2018 or so. I thought, with my background with structural steel, I thought, how do we apply a mark number to something like this storefront with all the different pieces? And I thought, well, that's pretty much what spaces are for. Spaces are used to locate where our markups are. So rather than traditionally putting it space in a room and then all of the markups in that room knowing that they live there, I thought, well, let's create a space around our storefront. And let's just give it a mark number. So storefront 10 and say okay. And now if we look at our markups list and our spaces, if I sort it by space by clicking on the top of the column, now you can see I have 15 parts to storefront 10, and here's my list of materials. They're all associated with storefront 10. And just for fun, over here, they actually figure out their hours of labor in the shop and the install based on the square footage of the entire storefront. So here it takes all of the, I created a markup for the whole space, the whole storefront, that feeds into the markups list for storefront and fab hours. And then just for fun, I think when I was doing this, I was geeking out on a Saturday. I ran out to the garage, grabbed a tube of caulking, and figured out how many linear feet of caulking you could get in a tube. Okay, figured out some fictitious waste factor. And with all of these area measurements, it actually gives us the perimeter measurement as well. So I had it tell me how many tubes of caulking I need for my project. And then my number thus is just, if there's 5 of this exact same storefront throughout this mall, I can say 5 thus, and it'll multiply all of my quantities times 5. So just one example with the storefront. Let's see, I've got a few open here. Another one I built not too long ago for a roofing company in Rapid City, South Dakota. We've got all of their membranes, membrane tools, boards, trim, all kinds of stuff over here. The one I wanted to highlight, the field membrane. So they just go in and with their snaps, they click in all the corners and put their roof membrane over the whole area. And what this gives us then, they can go in and enter the waste factor, whatever they want that to be. And then whatever size roll they're purchasing, in this case, 6 by 100. We figured out some overlap and stuff like that to get the actual square footage of that roll. And then with some custom columns, it'll tell us how many rolls. If we've got our membrane plate spacing at 12 inches, this is a pull down menu, so I can select those standard choices. If I enter that, then it tells me how many membrane plates I need and how many pails of field adhesive. So literally just come in, color between the lines is my goal, and have it spit out all the information, all the quantities that I need. Typically, I try to get to the units that we purchase things in. So pails, plates, fasteners, and things like that. So this is another example of that. And if you guys have questions along the way too, you can enter those in the chat and I'll try to answer those. We got a ton of people, so I'll do my best to fire through those if I can. Another one, let's see, I'm going to open this here. Oops. Going to show us how to create a tool in the tool chest. Yeah, we'll do that in a second. So this is another one that I did for a concrete contractor. I built tool chests for piers. These are standard piers that they use. And then I created a generic one they can just build it whatever size it is. Cast in place walls, concrete slabs. With these, I created the different thicknesses, whether it had welded wire fabric, rebar at 12, 18, 24, and then the next size 5, 6, 8, all their common ones here. And as I lay those out, just a 4-inch concrete slab. I guess I should follow the drawings. That'd be smart, huh? 6-inch slab on grade. So I can come in here, grab my 6-inch slab on grade, always snapping to the content of the PDF with my snap to content tool down here. And also, I always have my reuse markup tool turned on here so that I can just keep drawing slab after slab. I don't have to go back to my tool chest every time. So other side of this is 5-inch. So I'll come up here. This one I'm going to place with some rebar. I can drag that over wherever I want that. Put a hatch pattern in there so it kind of looks like it has rebar. And then that is doing all my calculations for me. Some other ones in here, continuous strip footing. That's what you see up here. Curb and gutter, all the different profiles that they typically use. And isolated footings. So I built these to be 12, 16, 18, 20 inches thick, just typical sizes. And when I build these, if they're isolated footings, in this case, they're kind of a tan color. And the tan gets darker as they get thicker or deeper. So I can look at this overall plan and see roughly, all the ones that are the same. And I can kind of pick and see which one's which very easily without having to drill into the markups list. Okay. And then, so I've got some more pad footings over here. So I can, again, just very easily, little trick here. If I select all of these footings, of course I didn't click on it, hang tight. I click on all these pad footings here in Revu. If you want to make a copy of these really quick, you just hold your control key down on your keyboard, click and drag, and you can drop it over here and add all of those at the same time. And I think that's the same in Revit. You hold down your control key, you can copy things. Of course, I learned that after I'm not in Revit anymore. So here you can see, super easy. My goal is always, I want the intern to come in next summer and just color between the lines and trace over stuff and have all of my quantities pile up in my markups list. All the smarts can just happen in the background. So for instance, my pad footings on this one, 20 inches thick, it'll give me the volume of concrete. But then I also built in some tools for rebar. So I can come in, make sure that all my 20-inch have, based on the foundation schedule, they all have number 5s. Maybe they are top and bottom. So I've got a top mat and a bottom mat. I can go over to my properties and slab mat. I'm going to say top and bottom bars. So there's 2. I put in my rebar spacing, 1 foot on center each way. And over here, it's giving me the total linear footage of rebar for each pad footing and a total here. So now I know how much rebar I need, how many linear feet of number 5s, number 4s, and so on. Okay. Another fun example there. And then also there's a tool called Quantity Link, where we can link to our Excel spreadsheet. I've got that example over here. In this case, I've got a tool for a 6-inch wood frame exterior wall, and that's what this is all built out for. And earlier I talked about what if all of my materials could be calculated with one markup? Well, if I go grab my 6-inch wood frame wall, and I know this isn't a relevant drawing, but if I come in here and draw over my exterior wall and double click, you see the quantity came in, 92 feet of treated 2x6 by 12 foot. Tells me that's drawing from Bluebeam right here. The rest of this is all calculations in Excel. So I can tell it that they're 12 footers I'm purchasing. I need 8 of them. The price whenever I created this spreadsheet and the total cost. Now that's my base plate. My double top plate is just that times 2. My stud count is that 16 inches on center plus 1 for my starter stud. Gives me my stud count. Anchor bolt, same formula, just different spacing. Batted insulation, it'll tell me how many bundles I need. Exterior sheathing, based on the height of this wall, I can have it tell me how many sheets of sheathing I need, or sheetrock on the interior, and get all that pricing and quantities figured out just by tracing over the wall like that. Okay. So those are some examples. Let's dive in and see how we can create some of these tools. So I'm going to open up just a plain drawing here and show you guys some of our basics. So first thing we need to do over here on the right side, and just so you know, if I go to my review menu, profiles, I'm going to switch over. Thought I was in it already. Sorry. Switch over to my review advanced profile. So everybody should have that as an install. Review advanced. I like this one because it puts certain tools on the left, like my file access and my tool chest. And then on the right side, I've got my properties and my measurement panel. So I can have both open on each side. Okay. So the basics of measurements. First thing we need to do before we do anything at all is calibrate. Need to tell Bluebeam what scale our drawing is at so it can give us accurate measurements. Just below that, there is a radial with a preset. So I can look at the title block, come in here, pick what size or what scale the drawing is at. 1/8 inch equals a foot. I will tell all my students every single time to never do it that way. You guys all know it's very easy to scale to fit, and it's going to fit on whatever size piece of paper you accidentally picked, right? So you're going to print an 8.5 by 11 of this 42 by 30, and the title block's going to say 1/8 inch equals a foot, and your quantities aren't going to be anywhere near what they should be. So I always calibrate manually. It's super easy. Click on the calibrate button. It's going to tell you to select 2 points of a known dimension. I click OK. I zoom in somewhere where there's a dimension. Usually the bigger the better. I'm just going to use this 30 feet. And again, I always have my snap to content turned on down here. So you can see that little square. It's snapping to the nearest point of that line, just like AutoCAD, and it'll lock in on the endpoint. And then I can come over. A trick here, I hold the shift key. I use that a lot. It draws a straight line. I don't want to accidentally calibrate on a skewed line. So I'm going to hold my shift key, snap on this one. And what this means is this random distance on the piece of paper equals 1 foot. And I know that's 30 feet. So I update it, say apply scale, and now I can get all the measurements I want. So starting with the length measurement, I grab that one, just double check my 30 feet. Again, always snapping to the content to get accurate measurements. There I get my 30 feet, and now I can get whatever measurements I want. Start measuring the inside of these walls, face to face. Again, holding my shift key so I get straight lines. Super easy. Next one, the poly length. This one is used basically for anything you're getting linear footage or linear measurement of. Just clicking those points with a continuous line, double click when you're done, and it'll give you the length of each segment and the total length. So some tricks with this one, when you select it, you can of course use the grips to adjust. If you hold your shift key down, you can add a grip anywhere. If you hold your shift key and click on a grip, you can remove it. And another one, if you right click on a line segment, you can convert to an arc. And that will give you a couple more grips to be able to adjust that. All the while, every change we made, it's updating the total length of that markup. Now, if you're doing things like plumbing, electrical, ductwork, anything like that, where you've got a horizontal going through a cable tray or something like that in the ceiling, we don't want to forget about the vertical wire that we have on each end to get down to those outlets and things like that. So we select it, go over to our measurement panel, and down here we've got a section that says rise drop. If I have 8 feet of vertical wire on each end, I just add in 16 feet. Click enter. It indicates it added 16 feet for the rise drop, and it gives me a new total length for that cable. So now I don't have to try to figure out some sort of waste factor or whatever for all the vertical. I can get that in there. Okay. Just for fun, if this was a cable, I'm going to come over to my properties and I'm going to change what it looks like. So I might want this to be blue. Maybe I want a dashed line, something like that, maybe a little bit thicker. And I'm going to name the subject Cat6 cable. Good. Now that it looks the way that I want, actually, because I accounted for the vertical on each end, I'm just going to have fun with this and put a circle on each end. Not a crazy circle, maybe a 75% circle. And now it looks, every time I do a project, my Cat6 cable is going to be a blue dash line with the circles on the end because I accounted for some vertical in there. Okay. Most of the time when I create tools like this, I turn off the caption. Just check that. I don't want to see the measurements on my markups. I know they're happening in the background in the markups list. I trust it's down there. I don't have to see it. If I started running cable to every single one of these rooms back to my server room, it's going to get super cluttered. And if I have the measurements and labels turned on, it's going to be even worse. Everything's overlapping. So I just know this is Cat6. It's the same every project. I don't have to have those labels on. To keep this tool exactly the way that I've created it, I'm just going to right click on it, go down to add to tool chest, and drop it in whatever tool chest you want. I'm going to throw it in my tools. Here you can see it showed up down here. Cat6. When I click on it, it's an exact duplicate of the first one, which I will never ever use again. But if you double click on the icon, it'll change what it looks like. And now I've got a tool I can use on every project. Just come up here. Again, if you hold your shift key, draw those straight lines for that cable tray. We can run Cat6 cable to every one of these rooms, wherever we have a TV. Okay, and you can see there, it's nice and clean. I don't have my labels on, but I'm going to each room. So that's one example. Another one, let's see. Underneath, hiding underneath the Polylink tool is the perimeter tool. So a lot of glazing companies want the area of the exterior face, the elevation. They look at elevation views and get those quantities. Sometimes if they have a curved corner, it's impossible to get that area. So I teach them to go to a plan view, maybe like this one down here. Pretend this is an exterior glazing. I can trace this, skip over that corner, double click over there, right click on this corner, convert to arc. And with this one, it's giving us the length of that line. And if I go to the measurement panel over here, I can give that wall a depth. So let's just say that's a 30-foot tall wall. Hit enter. And down here, I want to show the depth for the height of that wall and the wall area. It's going to take the length of the wall times the depth and give me the square footage of that wall, even though it's curved. Okay. Does the tool chest keep the settings current every time you open a new session in Bluebeam? And can those settings be saved on a network? Absolutely. Once you create these tool sets, you just save those, export either the tool chest or the whole profile, and all your teammates can open up that profile and have all those exact same tools. On a network, yes, you can put those on a network, maybe set the permissions, lock down that tool set so that it can't be overridden with anybody making changes to tools or anything like that accidentally. But yeah, everybody can load profile or tool sets on from a network as well. And I've got a blog post on my website too that goes through all the steps and how to save all the different bits and pieces of your profile before you export it. So that would be a good one to check out for that. But yeah, basically, when I build tools for customers, I build out the entire interface, all the tools and tool chests, and then I export that, deliver it, and train them on how to use all their tools. So good question, Maria. All right, next one, let's go over to area. The area tool. I'm going to go down here. And the area tool is pretty simple. Again, snapping into the corner, I'm going to click and drag down to the opposite corner, and it gives me the area of that room. Now, all the software that we use is fighting for the center of the room to put their label. And in Bluebeam, when I try to move this text, it moves the whole thing. I'm just going to hit escape so it doesn't move it. And the trick there is to hold your shift key down and move that up where you want that to be. Okay. So what about the area when I've got this goofy curve up here? Same as I just showed you with the panel. If I try to find the end of the straight line here, instead of clicking and dragging, I'm picking on all of the points. Double click on my last one. Right click, convert to arc. This one I can tell I'm already off. It's not straight. It's a little closer. Right click, convert to arc. And that'll give us the area of that room. Now we also have a tool for area measurements called Dynamic Fill up here. The last button on the right looks like a bucket of water. And I used to work with a guy named Phil. He wasn't dynamic in any way until he overheard me say dynamic fill. Then he'd pump his fist and he'd get super excited. So that's my fun story about dynamic fill. Dynamic fill works. You need a continuous line all the way around the perimeter of the area you want to measure. So first, because I have an open door, I need to close that. I'm going to click on add a boundary, come down here, draw a line across the door, select my paint bucket, and just start pouring paint in my room here. And I'm going to bleed through that wall or that door and the door tag until that room is filled. And then up here, I just need to tell it what to report. So I'm going to pick area and then apply. And it'll do a nice job going all the way around those curves and inlets and give me my square footage. So lots of cool stuff. We had a good one, Patrick. So that is the dynamic fill. Another one I'll show you up here for area measurement. And I'm just going through all of my tips and tricks and secrets because we have time. If I create a couple of area measurements here, let's say this one is a residential roof. And it has a 10-12 pitch. I just select the area measurement, come over here where it says pitch. I can choose degree or grade, depending on what type of material I'm measuring, what information you have. For this one, I'm going to do pitch, and it's a 10-12 pitch. Hit enter. It labels the pitch, updates the area for me. So it does the math for me. Super cool. All right, another fun one I want to show you is how to create custom count tools. So with the count tools up here, it'll give you a generic check mark to just go through and count things. Okay. Depending on what you're counting and how many, this works fine. If you're counting a lot of things, I don't like check marks because we have no idea what it is. Could be the toilet, who knows what it is. So I don't like to use those. I like to use custom ones. I'm going to show you how to quickly create a custom count tool. So first off, I'm going to go up to my edit menu, go down to snapshot, and I'm going to click and drag here, take a picture of this toilet. It'll flash blue, put it on my clipboard, and I'm going to right click and paste it. So now I've got a markup that I can do whatever I want to. Next, I'm going to right click on it and change colors. And I don't want it to be black because it'll blend in with everything else. So I'm going to change all the black pixels to red and say, okay. Next, I'm going to right click, add it to my tool chest. You see it down here. It says snapshot. And right now it's just a tool that will suggest a toilet. I can place them wherever I want. It's not counting them. It's just suggesting them. So I'm going to right click on it, go down to create count. And now I've got a toilet with a little tally on it. And it's a count tool. But I'm not finished yet because if I start placing this now, it's just going to say count measurement. I want to double click in the subject and actually call this a toilet. Now, when I place these, this one's just a markup. I'm going to delete that one. Now, when I place those and I go to my markups list, it actually says toilet and tells me how many. Okay. My goal when I'm building tools and doing these for customers, I don't ever want to see area measurement, length measurement, perimeter measurement. That information is worthless to me. I want to be able to know exactly what it is and how much. So labeling my tools appropriately so that I know what I'm counting and how much I need. I want to be able to export this to Excel or a PDF or whatever the case might be and know exactly what's going on with my project without even seeing the drawing. That's my goal. Okay, so that's why I name the tools and build them the way that I do. I want to be able to just mark things up and have this stand on its own and create itself with accurate totals and measurements. Okay. Now that I created that tool, I'm going to show you guys how we can quickly find those. We go to our search panel over here, and I know I'm getting close on time. There's a tab on the top called Visual Search. If I click on Get Rectangle, I can take a picture of that toilet again. It'll put a preview up here. Now, Bluebeam doesn't know that's a toilet. It doesn't know it's circles. All it knows is there's, I don't know, 1,000 pixels that look like this exactly. And I'm going to tell Bluebeam to look for those. So I'm going to click search. I have my sensitivity set really low, so it finds all those examples. The higher I have it set, the more exact it needs to be. And down here, it looks like it found 6 of them. So I can click on those and it'll bring me there to verify. Just make sure they're not tennis rackets or anything like that. Once I know they're toilets, I can select all. Next to that, what do I want to do with the ones I've checked? I can apply account measurement, and there's my custom tool. So I can select that. It's going to place that symbol on all of my toilets that quick. And in my markups list, again, it's going to tell me there's 6 of them down here. So you can see if you build these tools properly with the data in them and name them appropriately, save them to your tool chest, save them with your team, you're building consistency, you're building standardization, you're making it super easy and accurate. So again, I want the intern to come in the spring, trace over all these walls with a certain color highlighter, find all the toilets in 3 seconds and put that symbol on it and have a total estimate in just a matter of time. So hopefully I showed you guys some things. You learned some things. I'm going to jump back to my PowerPoint here. And I want to thank everyone again for logging on today. Here are a few ways you can connect with me, and make sure you check all the resources on my website, including free AutoCAD hatch patterns you can actually install in Bluebeam for your markups, free tool downloads, got 1,615 tools that you can download for free, free webinars monthly, a thriving professional learning community forum that you can come in, ask any questions that you want. But the biggest news, make sure you snap the QR code here and join my newsletter. I have both free and paid on-demand digital courses coming out in the next week or so. So you want to make sure that you are on the list, finding out about those when they're launched. And again, I want to thank everybody for joining, and enjoy the rest of the conference. I'll be around. Actually, before I dive out, I'm going to show you guys.
I was going to say, Troy, we have a question for you.
Okay.
Do you typically work with one drawing, or are multiple files combined workable?
If I'm understanding it correctly, do I work with one-page documents or multi-page documents? It
I believe
varies.
that's the intent. Yeah.
Yeah, it varies. Typically, that's the practice of the company. However they do it, I don't change that. I make suggestions, but ultimately, I'm not there. They hired me because they're successful, and I'm just going to bring them to the next level. I don't go in and say, this is Bluebeam and this is how you're going to work from now on. It's quite the opposite. Tell me how you work, and I'll do my best to make Bluebeam do that. So whether it's one sheet or multiple sheets, you can work with that. A lot of times when it's multiple sheets, I'll suggest using sets in Bluebeam, which is a collection of multiple individual PDFs. But that's a whole document management best practice class that I teach for that.
Great.
Let's see.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thanks, Christina. I appreciate your comment in there. Patrick, the markups panel allows you to sort markups per page and sheet. Yep. Yeah. So if it is a multi-page document and you're doing all your markups, you can sort that by page to get your quantities per page. A lot of times when I do that, I'll build a legend also per page to put that on directly on the sheet. Good. So yeah, if you got questions, put those in the chat. We got another couple of minutes here. Otherwise, on your screen, I've got my what I call the brainery, the Bluebeam brainery, and I'm going to copy and paste this in the chat for everyone. I would love for you to click on that link, join. It's free. It's just a great resource for you to come in to any one of these subgroups, ask your questions about Bluebeam. There's people all over the world that are excited to help you and brainstorm um, solutions to whatever issues you have. I'm in here all the time. It's an extension of this webinar. I'd love to help you guys out with your questions on Bluebeam. So I encourage you to join there. For fun, also, it's set up with points. So you can actually work your way through the martial arts belt. Um, Currently, the leader is a brown belt. So you can come in and have some fun with that as well. We'd love to have you.